I want you to check this out too. Um, as you can see right now, it says right here in this dictionary, it says Amir Rai Ekan, Amir Ekan, right? First is a adjective pertaining to America, and the second is a noun, a native of America, originally applied to aboriginals of copper color races, found here by the Europeans, but now applied to descendants of Europeans born in America. Okay, let's check this out.
I'm J. the originator and host of the American Indian Streams. I'm here today with an old friend and brother, Minister Louis Farrakhan from the Nation of Islam. A year and a half, a little over almost a year and a half ago, because of all the thousands of people that I've met over my years, conversations with people that look like African American people. And when you really get down to the nit and the grit of it and ask them, what's your ancestry? Oh, my grandma was a Cherokee, or my great-great-grandfather was, I think he was a Seminole. If you were to walk into any mosque in America and you just laid your hands on the first person or the third person or the fifth person that you see, you realize that you're laying your hands on a Native American. I believe there were only 8% of the slaves that came to America. So how is it that there's so many more people that they claim are black or African American? I think they got the numbers wrong.
Crazy.
Which means star-sung woman. I'm a proud Oglala Lakota Native American woman and a black woman.
From where?
Pine Ridge, South Dakota. But my tribe is from Pine Ridge, South Dakota.
Okay.
Many people know my tribe as the Sioux. Sioux means savage in French. If people knew that Native Americans and the warrior spirit was still alive, then more people would be like, yeah, we could fight. You know, they have that warrior, that strength in them. But the thing is that they want the world to know, to think that we're extinct. They want the world to know, to think that we're extinct. They want us to think, and then that we cannot reclaim back a land that was already ours.
What do you see in Africa?
I see nothing.
Africa is a big blank continent on this map. What this means is that you are the only person whom we've tested who actually descends from a Native American female. Who actually descends from a Native American female.
All right, this is Dr. Ivan Van Sertima. He's like my hero, kind of, because he's like one of the first. He's like one of the first to kind of like put it together that blacks were here, and that he didn't. It was kind of hard because Europeans distort so much history. They basically threw out all our history and whitewashed it, painted over us. They were doing it in Europe to the Moors there, and when they came here, and the Spanish, when they colonized here, they was doing it in Mexico. If you even think about telling a amalgamated Mexican, a mestizo Mexican, that the Olmecs or Aztecs or black, they will get pissed. But there was many different races here, kind of in the Americas. In Mexico, the Olmecs were the oldest. They built all them pyramids and stuff, and their descendants became the Aztecs. And then to the south, you had the Mayans. Now the Aztecs were also black. They were also Aborigines, and then you had the Mayans who were of Mongoloid and Aborigine mix descent. They were like brown skin, they were like brown skin, what you call it, Mongoloids. Excuse me. So Van Sertima back in like the late 70s into the 80s did all these studies of the Olmecs and stuff like that, especially in the 80s, and came to the conclusion that they were Negro. They was us, man. And I'm gonna play some excerpts from some of his stuff. This is from well, then he believed that the Africans, I mean that the black, I mean that we would. He didn't really know about us being Aborigines, but the fact that he came up with that blacks were here was a revolutionary idea, and it's still to this day a revolutionary idea, which is crazy because we are the Indians, we are the Indios, all right. But for him to come to this himself was crazy, and I guess because a lot of black people really pay attention to what was going on in Mexico, finding these heads, going to museums, or like even studying anything like that. So he studied it. Being from South America himself, Guyana, which is politically Caribbean, but it's on the South American mainland. It's a former British colony and now English South American country, English speaking South American country. Mexico was right there to him. So, the Mayans is in his backyard. The Aztecs would have been in his backyard too. So this is not foreign to him, to know this stuff. To have seen the pyramids over there or to know about them because he was much closer to them than most of us are. Unless you were like in California, or Texas or Arizona, but still, the American culture is a lot different, than the culture down here in South America, regardless of what language you speak. But just for him to come to the conclusion that blacks were here was remarkable, and I learned from the Moors that we were here, like Hakeem Bey, which I'll probably put on later on, even though I don't like, not that I don't like giving the Moors too much credit, because I think that Morocco and the Moors and all of this is trying to like hijack and amalgamate themselves or graft themselves onto our culture. It's one thing if you're an Indian and want to be Muslim or learn Moorish science, but Moors tend to hijack everything. They think every Indian, every Aboriginal here in America is a Moor, and we're not. The Moors are they either, I don't know who they are really, and they get kicked out of every place that they touch, and they're one of the reasons why we're in the situation we are now, because the Europeans was chasing them. They chased them out of Europe and they wanted to kill them, and they basically led them here to America, and we kind of got the grunt of it, even though we didn't do nothing to the Europeans. So I have a real problem with that, and there's a lot of evidence for that. I don't know if the Moors or the original Aborigines of Europe and was pushed out and came back, or what. But Moors are basically blacks without a land. They on water, like pirates. I believe they were the pirates, like Blackbeard and thing and all of that. And they gave us this maritime amnesty law that we're under right now. Okay, but I digress. Let me get back to Van Sertima. But Van Sertima, this brother, it was very remarkable for him to come to this, and I built upon this, and I think a lot of us in this Aboriginal movement have built upon this because nobody's really doing this. It's only a few of us, and it takes somebody who's really into history and really love their people to really dig into all of this. But he'll say that things like words from Africa, words here came from Africa when it was really the other way around, because we're actually older. This is the old world. You know, everything that's in the Bible and stuff happened here. Egypt was here, you know. So we actually traded with the Africans, and we gave them agriculture. We gave Europe agriculture because the potato, which, you know, like is the staple in Ireland for food, really came from Peru. And the Peruvians were another Aboriginal Negro tribal sect. You know, the Spanish like wiped most of our Aboriginal brothers and sisters down there in South America out, and then interbred with them. They couldn't breed them out, but they basically did. But their remnants is in those light skin and brown skin, you know, people there now. You know, they left the Mongoloids alone, but they came after us, the Saracens. You know. So let me play a little bit of Van Sertima, so y'all can get an idea a little bit about this brother.
Discovered a huge stone head. Now I want the slide one so you can see the area I'm talking about. And when I speak of Mexico, please understand, I'm not talking of the shrunken Mexico of today. I'm speaking of Mexico when it was the center of the American continent, at least the North American continent, when it stretched as far as La Plata in Canada, when it included parts of Texas, California, Colorado, etc. So that when one speaks of it, don't just push it off the map and say Central America. It was America. It was the center of the first American civilization. Now let us have the first slide. There you see the area I'm speaking about. In that diamond or basin, that basin where you see those little diamonds, those little black diamonds, there is where at La Venta, on this side, at Tres Zapotes and at San Lorenzo, they found a number of huge stone heads. But the first head was found in 1858, and I want to show you what they saw in 1858.
Now check this out.
Next. This is the head. This head was dug out of the earth in 1858. And this is the face. Let us look at the side. This is the side. Let's look at the back. And note now the back.
You see them braids? I can't really make this look better. This is kind of a bad quality. I think this speech is from like the early 90s. But if you can really see, man, I'll bring my head around here. If you can see this area right here, those are braids. Those are braids. They try to say that these that the Olmecs weren't what you call it, that the Olmecs weren't they weren't black, but even a lot of the Mexican anthropologists and stuff like that has came out and said these of Negro stock, man. These guys look like us, you know. It's us. These are our ancestors. These are some of our oldest ancestors, you know, and they were remarkable, you know, and we should take pride in that we came from these remarkable people. And not to say that Africans aren't remarkable, but you know, we got to get off this African thing. I know it's hard. This is what you've been told, but you've been told from your oppressor that you're African. None of us ever said we was African. None of our ancestors or those who came before us, our family, you know, none of us. Our family always said, well, we got a little bit of Cherokee, we got a little bit of Creek, we got a little bit of Blackfoot, Crow, you know. Nobody ever said we got Zulu, we got this, that, and the third or whatever. There might be a couple of people, you know, but that small percentage of African slaves that was brought here, they would have mixed into our population so well that, you know, they would be little remnants. You know, that's why they had to make roots, because, you know, in the 70s, a lot of people were starting to get in touch with their Aborigine, you know what I'm saying? So they had to make roots to tie us back to Africa, but we didn't come from Africa, man. And it's not a shame to say so. And not all blacks are Africans, and not all people came from Africa. That was Darwin's crap. That was his crap. You know, his eugenics. Darwin was a staunch racist. What they don't tell you about Darwin was that he tried to connect us as the human, as the missing link. He said black people were the missing link. You know, like when you see the monkey turn into the human, the different stages. We're supposedly like the one right before the white man, because you know he just morphs into a white man. You know, from being a black monkey or brown monkey or whatever. I don't, you know, even if you believe in that crap, you know, uh. All right, this is Wakka Flokka Flame. You know, famous trap rapper, I guess you would say. Uh, New York, Queens, New York born, Atlanta raised, I guess. He came out not too long ago and said that he was Cherokee, and he's not African American and black, and a lot of people can't wrap their hands around that. And this is stuff that we've been talking about. Now, listen to what he has to say, because it's it kind of hits home, and he's making a good point here. So check this out.
Man, I be seeing y'all going crazy with the shit I've been saying on Sway. Niggas be like, yo, Walker said he not black. You're right, I'm not the black America call me, and it's just hard for a nigga to be from the slums, the ghetto, the hood, whatever niggas want to say we from, and then when you become this celebrity, you get to walk around the world, get to travel around the world, you get to touch the people, and get to find out the truth. And then when you get back home, what you call America, and you start telling the truth, the people you see that's in your community that's still plugged in the matrix and still trapped into what society tells you is reality. And you know it's not reality. You know it's not the truth, and it's hard to explain it because you truly learning still. You truly just experiencing false statements and false lifestyles. It's hard to explain. But just know, my nigga, like, I'm black. You know what I'm saying? But I ain't the black American side here. Get the fuck out the matrix.
Now, did you just hear that? If you don't think your favorite star celebrity, especially multi-millionaire traveling around the world, don't know who they are, who we are, you're bugging. They just keep quiet about it, because if they want that fame and notoriety to continue as you play with the program, all right. If you notice, you haven't seen too much projects from Flocka and maybe the last few months, especially since he said this, and he's been catching a lot of flack for it, and probably a lot more from his record company and stuff, because this is taboo. But yeah, when you go to Europe and you go to Africa and stuff like that, they'll tell you that you're not African. They only keep quiet when they come here because they're told that when they migrate here. All right, just like other groups of blacks, you know, from Latin America or whatever, are told to keep quiet, and they get to enjoy nearly white status. The white picks with Africans. You don't see Africans getting pulled over by the police. You know, we do. It's all about us, because it's our land that everybody's on, and they don't want you to wake up and find out about it. So y'all better wake up. Y'all really need to wake up. All right, for all you you people who think that we came from Africa on slave ships, you know, hundreds at a time, watch this man describe Columbus's journey. And let me remind you that we didn't have modern technology like refrigeration or ways of storing food for long distances for a large amount of people until the Spanish-American War, which was in the 1890s. So just listen to this real quick.
In the case of Columbus, for example, why is it we who are so familiar with the voyages of Columbus are not aware of the fact that Columbus never touched the American continent? Why are we not aware of the fact that Columbus remarked on this matter not just once? Several times he mentioned on his third voyage that he went along the coast of Africa, that he stopped in the Cape Verde for several days looking for black animals because he found both the Africans and the Native Americans in the Caribbean were sacrificing black animals, and he wanted to please them with a black animal as a gift. That he wandered further, finding no such black animals. He wandered further into the Senegambia current and was swept. He said he had 6 ships, 3 were sent on the normal route, and he was swept on the Senegambia current, making it in far less time, but under grievous conditions because the Europeans were totally unaccustomed to the great sun burning down upon them in tropical latitudes. And Columbus reports how the heat was so great in the equatorial regions as he took the African route that the caskets burst, the meat roasted and putrefied, and that he feared for the life of his men and himself if rain had not fallen. All these things are recorded in the document. They're just the sides. They're just the sides, things dismissed, pushed aside, until we put together the botanical evidence, Gossypium, Hirsutum var punctatum, the metallurgical evidence that the Spanish metallurgists had assayed the metal spears and showed them to be African, the navigational evidence, because the currents move in that direction and the Portuguese had noted the Africans had the navigational capacity and were actually setting out from the Cape Verde. The documented evidence, both of Columbus himself and of the Portuguese, the oral tradition of the Native Americans, all of these things are there. Until we pull them together, they make no sense because they...
Now you just heard him say that not only did the whites have trouble in the equatorial regions because it was so damn hot, but that heat also that heat also putrefied their meat and whatever stock they had. I mean, it was a treacherous journey to travel across the Atlantic. It still is to this day with modern ships. Matter of fact, if you can avoid going certain routes, they do so. It's very hard to. It's easy to leave America and come to Europe. It's hard to leave America, both North and South America, and go to Africa because of the currents and the winds is the strongest of any ocean. But it's and it's easier for you to leave Africa and come to North and South America. They actually had to sail down the African coast and get swept by the current, which would take them towards the Caribbean and Brazil. That's why Columbus always made it to the West Indies, the Caribbean. It was very hard for them, and they would have to go to the Caribbean first, and then from the Caribbean go up into America along the coast. Excuse me. This is how all the explorers did it at this time. So how can you have 100, 200, 300 slaves on a ship and feed them when you barely could feed the crew that you had on a reconnaissance mission? Okay, they didn't improve on their way of storing food. In the Caribbean, they taught the whites how to salt fish and stuff like that, how to jerk, make jerky and stuff. But that came later, towards the end of the slave trade. So the supposed slave trade. So right there, that kind of debunks the whole slave ship thing, without him having to even say anything about the slave ships, So how can that happen? I would debate anybody on that. They just couldn't do it. When they show the slave movies, they could show porridge. You still wouldn't have enough porridge to feed everybody. You know how much porridge you would have to feed all those people? Not to mention the urinating and defecating on each other and stuff. How would you keep people sanitized? It just wasn't a economically feasible move to take people from Africa and bring them here when you had a workforce here. Like in the Mongol Native Americans, the fake Indians, because they're not Indians, they're just Native Americans. They just was here before the white man came. They should be ashamed of themselves to be put up on a stool as being weak and feeble. They tell you that they tried to enslave them, but they couldn't cut it, and they would die off, and they were weak, and this and that third. What group of people would do that? Who the hell would admit to being a weak people? Just like the Africans should be ashamed that they go along with this. They took 10 million to 20 million people from your continent and brought them here. I mean, the numbers are just staggering and stupid. And like I said, listen back to him. It was treacherous to get there. Usually when you left Europe for America, it was a one-way trip. You know, you left to come and stay. You know, was there trading? Yes, but not as much as the slave ships. You know, the voyages they try to pretend happened. It's just impossible to happen. And in this day and age, we should be smart enough to do the research and find out. This man just told you they couldn't store anything really. You know, so they basically probably lived off of wine. You know, wine and beer and stuff like that. So that's that for right now. Okay, one last thing I want to do real quick for this segment is read over this book right here real quick. This is a very old book. You can get it on PDF. It's called An Inquiry of the Distinctive Characteristics of the Aboriginal Race of America. And it was given, it was like a speech or whatever, or some kind of thing given at the Boston Society of Natural History. And it's by a guy named Dr. He was Samuel George Morton, MD, a medical doctor. And this was printed in Boston in 1842. Yeah, 1842. So you can see right there, it's a very old book. And this is in PDF form. Let's find that page real quick. It's gonna be very hard to it's very hard to to read this. But I just want to read this one little section right here. Same book. Right here where it says physical characteristics, all right? You see right there where it says it? I'm bringing myself right by it. I'm at this paragraph right here. Physical characteristics. It is an adage among travelers that he who has seen one tribe of Indian has seen all. So much do the individuals of this race resemble each other, notwithstanding their language, geographical distribution, and those differences of climate, which embrace the extremities of heat and cold. The half-clad Fuegians, and this is the people from Terra del Fuego, which is like the bottom of South America, shrinking from his dreary winter, has the same characteristics, though to an exaggerated degree, as the Indians of the tropical plains. And those again resemble the tribes which inhabit the region west of the Rocky Mountains. Those of the Great Valley of the Mississippi, and those again which skirt the Eskimo on the north. Sorry, it's hard to read this. It's just very, as you can see, blotted out and stuff. It's a very old book. All possess alike the long, lank black hair, the brown or something colored skin. Darkened colored skin, the heavy brow, the dull and sleepy eyes, the full and empowered lips, and the something but dilated nose. The traits are some word right there. I can't really see. The traits are equally something to the savage and civilized nations, but they inhabit the margins of rivers and feed on fish, or even the forest and the something on the in something on the spoils of the. Damn, I can't read that right there, but you get the drift of what I'm saying. Hold on, it cannot be
quarrel that physical. Hold on, I can't. It's very hard to read this. It's even harder than when I read it before. All right, it cannot be questioned that the physical diversities do occur equally and inexplicably, as seen in different shades of color, varying from fair tint to a complex, almost black. And this tool is something in which, hold on, next page. Hold on, not too far. Can have little or no influence. So also in reference is something, the differences are remarkable in entire tribes which more so over or geographically proximate to each other. These facts, however, are more exceptions in a general rule, and do not alter the something physiognomy, physiognomy. It's like a word we don't even use no more, of the Indians, which is as undeviatingly characteristics as the, what does that say right there? Right where my face is, right? As the Negro, which is as undeviatingly characteristics as that of the Negro. For whether we see him in the athletic Carib, which is the Caribs in the Caribbean, or the Chianos in the dark Californian, or the fair Boros, he's an Indian still, and cannot be mistaken for a being of any other race. Right there, this book right here, Aboriginal Race of America, written by a white doctor in Boston, said that the characteristics of us are the same as as Indians are the same as the Negro. But you could tell that we're different races. Just like when you look at me, I'm not, this skin color because I got white in me. I'm this skin color because I'm Indian. I'm copper colored. I'm American, not African. I don't have traits of an African. Dorman effed everything up by telling everybody that all blacks came from Africa. That took away all of our heritage. It takes away the uniqueness of the Australoids, which we are a part of. It took away from the Australian Aborigines. It took away from the East Indies, the Papua New Guineans. It took away from the other islands in the Pacific Islanders. It took away from us being here, who they committed paper genocide on anyway. He told you. Same characteristics as the Negro. Just as you could tell we're a different race, though. Just like you could see that, the Australians, the Aborigines they're a different race. But they're black. They're Negro. Same thing with the Negritos, with the slanted eyes in Asia. They're black, they're Negroes, but they're a different race. There's no such thing as the white race. There's only different races of blacks. It's not just our continent, it's our world. Look up Cheddar Man. That's the oldest bones they found in Europe, and he's a European Aborigine. So let's cut this crap. To tell you right here, it's an old ass book. I didn't write this book. I didn't make this up. This wasn't written by no slave. This is written by a professional doctor.
who was exploring in 1842